Hello, my name is
Hello.
David Johnson from East Technical High School, and I was wondering, have the Boy Scouts undergo any changes due to the recession?
Well, yeah, I would say, as we all have, you learn to do as much or more with less. One of the things that happens in tough times for any organization, I would say, especially a not-for-profit, it's a good thing, is that you cast about, you look at things, well, what are the things we're doing that aren't contributing very well to the mission? Maybe we could not do those so we can do mission-critical things. If you use this type of an economy and this type of a situation as a real opportunity to reevaluate and retool yourself, you can really benefit from it instead of wringing your hands and woe is me and, you know, oh my gosh, we want to continue to do. The definition of insanity is doing what you've done over and over and over and expecting different results. So this guides us into exploring ways to be more efficient and more effective. But none of us are deer in the headlights, and we're not panicked by the recession. But it does cause all of us, families, municipalities, communities, states, the nation, and individual components therein to kind of reevaluate how we steward our resources and how do we get the best bang for the buck.
Whether it's a child care worker, a school teacher, or a scoutmaster, any adult today who lays a hand upon a child seems to be in danger of either being accused of assault or of some kind of sexual imposition. Has this been a problem for the Boy Scouts in recruiting scoutmasters? And what programs or training do the Boy Scouts of America have to alert scoutmasters to the problem and how to avoid those problems?
Right. It's a great question. And I don't believe it has been a problem materially in recruiting scoutmasters, although it is an issue that people talk about and discuss all the time. We have a whole series of training programs and processes under what we call youth protection training that are mandatory trainings for scout leaders that include ways to avoid situations that could get you in that. For example, too deep leadership, that we just don't allow one-on-one relationship with. And that creates problems in the merit badge process, because when I was a boy, calling up a merit badge counselor, making an appointment, and then making my way to that counselor and a one-on-one learning about that badge was a very important part of the experience. But because of what you described, we discourage that simply because of that opportunity for either misperception or whatever. So it's very specific part of our training. I don't think it's hurt our recruiting. If it were only unique to the Boy Scouts as a problem, it probably would. But it's societal. It's everybody. As you said, it's a school teacher. It's anybody, and we recognize we have to accommodate that. We also recognize we have a serious responsibility for the health and well-being of young people and the kids in our care and custody. And we understand, of course, there's always going to be people out there who would prey on young people. So we have to build a program that is in fact safe and is also perceived as safe by parents and others who would put their kids in the program. So we're very, very real about that. We do a criminal background check on every applicant to be an adult leader. That's the very first thing, that before that person can register or be involved, we do a criminal background check. Costly proposition, but we think the safety of the kids is important.
As the Vice President of Membership for the Greater Cleveland Council, on behalf of the volunteers and professionals, thank you for the shout-out about our membership efforts. I follow with a question. You said that there's an opportunity and a need within the Hispanic community. Is there any particular age group also that we should be targeting in regards to membership?
I think so. I think that across the board annually for the last few years, we've seen a modest but real decline in Cub Scouting. And I think part of that has to do with perceptions of parents in terms of the user-friendliness of Cub Scouting. You know, do I have time to really be a den leader? I think the new Cub Scouts 2010 program is going to help mitigate that. It's much more flexible. But I think we need to really pay attention to that entry-level scout, because that's where these 52,407 Eagle Scouts are going to come from. And so I would suggest that the Cub Scout level is of critical importance to us. We're growing strongly and venturing. Boy Scouting is rocking along just fine. We need entry level at the Cub Scout level.
Thank you for coming to Cleveland. You know, in the past, there's been some lawsuits against the Boy Scouts of America for certain of its policies, and fortunately, in my opinion, the Boy Scouts has been pretty successful in those situations. Has that undermined, have these lawsuits and other legal issues undermined the success of the Boy Scouts or its expansion, and how has the Boy Scouts handled it, and what do you see for the future along those lines?
Yeah. I was wondering why it took so long into this to get to a question like that, but I'm game. First of all, no, I don't think it's hindered our ability to continue to do what we do and serve who we serve and deliver who we serve. To the extent that we have been relatively unwilling to deal with it in a public way, it's created opportunities for people to wonder in their minds, what is that really all about? And we haven't articulated that very well. As you said, we have prevailed. And I would also, you know, the Supreme Court case on this issue was all about the right of free association. That case in itself, the right of free association, is a fundamental right that we need to protect. Whether you agree with the issue or not, the right of freedom of association for all Americans is an important right, and so to that extent it was great. But I don't think it's really gotten, our surveys and our information, and we do a lot of testing, doesn't indicate that this is a reason why people won't join Scouting. Now, it's a very high-profile reason why some people won't support Scouting, because they have a very prominent position on that issue, and they won't support it financially or otherwise. But the average parent of kids of Scout age, I don't believe that this is a detriment to them getting involved. We have other issues there. We're just talking about the user-friendliness of the program. But maybe I could use this as an opportunity to address this whole issue, if you don't mind. And first and foremost, I think we all need to understand and recognize that sexuality, or the issues of sexuality, have no place in Scouting in any form, of any kind. That's just not who we are. That's not what we do. So keeping that sort of top of mind as we explore this issue a little bit, understand that issues of sexuality have no place in Scouting. That's not what Scouting is about. There's also a misconception out there that Scouting is actively and aggressively identifying or trying to identify and block homosexuals and others from being involved in Scouting, and that's not true either. This issue becomes an issue when a leader injects it into the Scouting experience. It's not an issue if it's not an issue. And you can follow up on that if you'd like. The other thing I would say to you is this is an issue that's discussed and debated and dialogue in every corner of this country. Municipalities and states and organizations and institutions are wrestling with the evolution of this subject, and we respect all the differing opinions in that evolution. We are informed by the dialogue. We recognize that this is an evolving process, and while that takes its course, we will continue to do our mission in the way that we're best equipped to do it now, and that's serve kids with this great program we just talked about for the last half an hour. I hope that helps, but it does sort of square up a little bit where we are on the issue.
Just a brief question. You talked a little bit about Hispanics and trying to get more participation with people that speak Spanish. But the growing part of this country is we're getting a lot of immigrants from all over the world with all kinds of different ethnic, religious backgrounds. And I'm just wondering what Scouting is doing to incorporate that growing part, including undocumented, because apparently we have an enormous number of undocumented immigrants who the kids, you know, it doesn't make a difference what the kid has.
Right. You show me an 8-year-old that knows his immigration status, and I'll say, we won't serve that one. That's a great question, and frankly, I think if you look over the history of Scouting and the history of immigration in this country, you look back following the Vietnam War and the large immigration of Vietnamese and Hmong and others from Southeast Asia, and the Scouting programs that were accommodating to them. And if you look through, in Minneapolis, for example, in St. Paul area, San Jose, California is probably the largest Vietnamese population in the country, has tremendous Vietnamese Scouting. And we find ways to work, and one of the ways that's very helpful is that most of these countries have Scouting, so they come with some sense of Scouting when they come. And so we manage to do that. Now, the Hispanic thing is a little different in that it's such a large phenomenon and such a rapidly growing segment of our population that it's incumbent upon us to understand the dynamics of that and aggressively try to get into that marketplace. But each local council works very hard to accommodate the populations that they serve. There are many parts of this country this Hispanic initiative has no application. They have no Hispanics to speak of. So, and we have a whole Scout Reach program in a division in Dallas that works on identifying targets of opportunity and hard to serve, hard to reach, or newly emerging markets, and we work aggressively at that. The Hispanic thing is large enough that it warrants the kind of focus that we put on it to figure it out quickly.